Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the MI podcast. Our today's topic of discussion is content marketing for startups. In today's digital age, we all research for anything we want to buy. It could be a product or service, whatever value. It could be something around 100 rupees, or it could be something like a car of maybe more than a lakh rupees. We research and we are a very informed consumer. In today's digital age, the information out there is for everyone. It is free. The data prices are at an all-time low, and everyone has a smartphone in the whole world. I would say out of the population of around 6 billion people, I think at least 2 billion you have smartphones. And India is the market which has the most amount of smartphones. So anything we want to purchase, we Google it. We look at certain videos of it. We'll see reviews. There's so many sites which are like aggregation, or they give you a more informed view of it. We listen to our favorite influencers talking about the product also, because they have gained a certain credibility in our eyes. So content out there is a huge tool of selling. Like, I would say, when Google was established, been like around 25 years, the crux of it was, with information, you can reach the top in terms of brands also. So, like, the more information you give to your target audience, not necessarily selling your services, but informing them about it. It could also have an educational angle, it could have an entertaining angle also. But when you create content around all these, then you can kind of reach your audience and inform them more, and they make a more better decision in terms of coming to that, whether they want your product or service, or in general, they more know more about that particular solution. So today we have companies, you have content heads there, you have a whole content team. Majorly, if you take over the last 6 7 years, if you have a digital marketing agency, you have a lot of talent in content. Your content services at the core of it. I'm like a B2B marketer, and I would say over the last 5 to 6 years, it would have started maybe 10% of my work was into content marketing. Today it could be up to 60 to 70% of my work is into content marketing. So this is how it is kind of evolved. You have like podcasts like this, you have videos about your, say, webinars or any other kind of informational thing. If you have a B2C service, you will have behind the scenes, you have vlogs. So the various kind of content formats, but the point here is that it is all about content today. Awesome. So to discuss this with me, we have a LinkedIn top voice here. We have Pallavi Tyagi. Hi Pallavi, how are you?
Hi, Nikhil. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So Pallavi, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from a very cold place right now. I'm in Mohali, and we've had a lot of fog for the last, I think, 3 4 weeks. So it's getting a little bit too much.
That's right. That's right. I think even in places like I am like in Mumbai and in the western areas also, there has been more. It's been colder than the previous few years. So little bit of a
Yes.
weather change. That thing. And obviously in Europe where you are, it's known for the cold weather. So I think it's very pretty nippy there.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome, awesome. So, Pallavi, you also the founder of 26 Tech. So, to the audience, a little bit about yourself, your journey in digital marketing, and also more about your background, if you could share that same.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I am the founder of 26 Tech, and 26 Tech is a company that works with bootstrapped companies, and we support them with their marketing needs. We're almost like a fractional marketing team for any company. So, at the cost of probably hiring a full-time marketing professional, they can instead outsource it to a team which is capable in a lot of different areas. So we've been in the market for about 4 years, and we've worked with about 45 clients in the last 4 years, and a lot of it is with, of course, B2C. There's also a lot of B2B work that we've done, and we also service NGOs with whatever they need, to kind of have an established presence in the market. Um, before 26 Tech, I'm originally an automotive engineer. I've done a master's in automotive engineering from Germany. and I have worked in the automotive domain for about 10 years. A lot of my experience has been abroad. I've worked in Germany. I worked for 8 years in Ford, Australia. And a lot of it has been, of course, very technical. I was a product engineer. And despite that, I still managed to, work with the customer side. So even product engineers have to factor in a lot of what the customer wants from the vehicle. And the second half of my career was about analyzing what vehicles are out there in the market and what customers like, what features they want, and what we can build into our future roadmap of design. So even though I was an automotive engineer and now I'm a marketer, my role has always been about analyzing customers, about understanding what customers want, and then either designing or marketing the exact same thing that they want to see. So yeah, that's been my journey. Have I think I've been in a professional for about 17 years. And first half, like I said, as an automotive engineer, second half as a marketer and an entrepreneur.
That's right. Pallavi, about consumer analysis, consumer research, you can shed a
Mm,
light about this because obviously, as marketers, we are doing this also. But at the level that you have done it, it's I think it's a proper process, and there are different
yes.
levels or stages. So you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was at Ford, like I said, for 5 years I was in the future model department, and that really meant that we had to analyze the vehicles that were out there. And at that time, the vehicles that had launched were the Ford EcoSport, which I know is very popular in India. It was designed in Australia. So one example was that when we looked at the kind of feedback that customers gave about the EcoSport, and they would say that there's a part in my dashboard which is making a noise, or I don't like the fitment of something, or the cup holder is not big enough, and so on. So there were these kind of
Hmm.
typical things that they were talking about, which are very common pain points for customers. As
Hmm.
a quality engineer, I had the job to kind of analyze and say, okay, what is a problem and what is not. And I think that
Hmm.
is extremely important, because you will have a lot of voices. Customers will say a lot of things, but you have to quantify the size of the problem, right? You have to say that,
Hmm.
okay, if 50% of my customers are complaining about this, then it's definitely a problem that needs to be fixed. As opposed to say 1% of
Hmm.
my customers, then that problem is much lower down the line.
Hmm.
So the market survey that we did, it had to be analyzed in order to say, okay, these are the priorities that the company is going to work on, and these are the things that are nice to have, but we may wait for it to see, and whether it is a problem across the board or it's a very specific audience that has that problem. So similarly, when I'm working in marketing as well, I work with different founders, right? And they have their products or their services out there. I always tell them that when you are creating your marketing strategy, always speak to the customer, always understand why are they buying from you. And that is the thing that you should amplify. If they're buying from you for a particular reason, don't pitch them why you made the product. It's not important for them. What is
Hmm.
important for them is what is the benefit that they are getting out of it. And if they are telling you something that they don't like, don't disregard it. Always check with other customers and see, is this a problem that you need to fix? Because the faster you fix big problems, the better you are in alignment with your customers, and then they will always choose you over someone else. So that's a way to build loyalty. So I think analyzing your customer's voice and kind of quantifying the problem is an extremely important part of market research.
That's right. Market research, what would you suggest to companies of your size, that they are just
Hmm.
starting up? Because sometimes the market research reports, those the actual market research companies, what work they do to access that is a bit expensive, or it's not going to work out for your particular business. So how do you feel you can do your own research, then just rely on gut feels and a bit of googling only?
Yeah. So, coincidentally, I am posting about this on social media next week. So, I was reviewing the post yesterday. I would say that there are three ways to. It's a three-step process. Actually, it's not. It's none of them is optional. The first step is always to talk to your customer, and even if you're talking to 4 or 5 people, which is very common, say in our size of the companies that we work with, even if you get to speak to those 4 and 5 people, give them time, like at least spend about 30, 40 minutes really asking them cross questions. Why have you bought it?
Hmm.
Why did you look at something else? Did you compare it? If you compared, why did you come to me and not to someone else? So, get really, I guess, go really deep into why have they bought it, because that tells you, what is it that your product is selling for. So that is your first research where you speak to your customers. The second thing is, if you can validate it with a larger survey. So based on what your customers have told you, you now have an understanding of which type of questions they are better at responding. So can you convert that into a Google form, and can you then send it out to people who are not your customers but who are in the same target audience? They may be same demographics, they may be same,
Hmm.
they have, like, if whatever your target audience is, can you send it out to
Hmm.
about 100 people and get them to respond?
Hmm. And
This
Pallavi,
may
I
not
think
be
it has
possible.
to be incentivized, right? Now, getting like, say, you give a form and then say maybe you have, a certain discount or some incentive that's attached, because people today with their time also, they don't kind of want to give you for this if there's even going to take 5 minutes for filling a form or giving any kind of feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if you can incentivize it, that's better. I have seen that, for example, I belong to a women's entrepreneur network, and people routinely put out surveys and they say, it would really help me if you can fill it up. And it's not going to cost me anything to give 5 minutes of my time to respond to a survey which fits my target audience. It's not like I'm going to buy, necessarily committing to buying from that person, but at least I feel that, okay, I belong to a community and I would like to support the other community members. So similarly, if you are in that kind of situation, a Facebook group or an entrepreneur community, then make use of that. Or, of course, the option is that you may have an email list, send it out to everyone with a little bit of a discount or whatever it is that they will get out of that. So that's the second part, right? Now this is where you're validating your what you've heard from your customers, and now you're validating that with a larger group of people. And the third important point is to now come and do the Google research. I would say come to that third. If you have
Hmm.
existing customers, do your internet research last, because you can search for 1,000 things and you'll get 1,000 answers. But if you've done
Hmm.
step one and step two, you have a little bit more focus. You know exactly what to look for. So now you can find statistics, you can find interviews, you can find a lot of other things that may support your theory or not. And then it will help you to kind of scale that to a much larger audience. So, market research, if you get it done from a company, of course, that is the best thing because they will take this off you, but it may not be affordable for you, and maybe your audience is not easily accessible. So, if you can do these three things, you're still better off than not doing anything at all. You're still better off at making a very educated guess about why your product works and how you can achieve scale.
That's right. Awesome. We will come to the topic of discussion. So,
Yeah.
startups, I just want to clarify when we are mentioning it, the startups are not the ones you see in the news and they've achieved great success and funding. It's anyone. It could be like a homemaker who is starting a tiffin service also in their colony. That is also is a kind of a mini startup. So we are talking about at that level because I would say we should address the mass audience first who aspires to start something on their own and with a very little capital, and then step by step kind of grow the same. So for them, a content strategy specifically to follow on a regular basis, what would be the importance of it?
See, first of all, I think it is important to clarify what content marketing is. Maybe your audience already knows it, but I think it's what is important to understand is that content marketing is not selling. Creating a poster about your latest discount is not content marketing, right? Content marketing is about using your product or your service as part of a story. That is what is important. If you can feed in your product or service in a relatable story that works with the customer, that they can relate to, that is content marketing. And of course, there are different formats, and I'm sure we'll get to it later, but that is the essence of content marketing. It is important for startups because whether you are creating a innovative product or service, or you've given a different spin to something that exists already, in all cases you have to tell people why you're different. What is it that you are doing? What is the problem that you're solving? And you can shout till you're blue in the face and say, I have the best app which helps you with this. It's not going to make a difference unless and until you actually show that app in action in a situation that your customer understands. So that is the main reason behind content marketing. Now, when we come to say a small scale startup or a solopreneur like you mentioned. So, as an example, I was working with one solopreneur who was making. She had really good spices. She came from Kerala, so she had really good spices, very high quality ones. Now, when you look at it, she's not selling a different product. Her product is still the same as peppercorns like someone else. What is the difference there? So she came to me and she said, I'm not quite sure what my social media strategy is going to be. How long can I talk about the fact that I've got it directly sourced from the correct farmer in Kerala? I said, look, why don't you start something where you're talking about the recipes that use these spices. Now there, when somebody looks at your recipe and it's a very different recipe, right? You're talking about some Kerala recipe which maybe no one has ever made. So maybe if you talk about that, and when you say that I'm going to use, you show your packaging and you use the peppercorns there. That's exactly what they would always associate it with, because they've never tried that recipe before. And if they like the recipe, then they will always say, okay, let me buy this over something else. And of course, you talk about the quality of the ingredients that are being used and all of that. All of that is secondary. But how do you draw people in? You draw people in by giving them something that everybody relates to, and that's a recipe. Everybody's looking for a recipe, and you optimize it for SEO. Your recipe will keep popping up, and everyone will say, "Oh, this is the brand that is creating this recipe. Let me see what they sell," and they will buy from you. So that's the kind of I guess that's the kind of positioning, and that's the kind of foot in the door that content marketing gives you. And it's then up to you to build it up so that it becomes your primary marketing strategy, and not rely on discounts.
That's right. The usage, where it goes in recipes, because that would create interesting content per se, where you can kind of get discovered more. Like if there is, you are talking about a recipe or innovative something, and
Hmm.
especially on Instagram, I would say after tech, the cooking related are the most followed, channels. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of a really good way to make your content mainstream, and then get it to your specific TG. So,
Yeah.
Pallavi, in recent years, any kind of major changes that you have seen which are kind of glaring, like in your strategies also that have happened in the last 4 to 5 years, as we have used different platforms or different kind of strategies and become more competitive also. How is all these things changed in the way?
Yeah, so see, content marketing has been around for 150 years, so it hasn't actually changed that much, in the sense that it hasn't, the core principle of using
Hmm.
your product or service has not changed. What has changed definitely is the format, and I'll get to the formats a little bit later. But what has also changed is that your one piece of content, because now you have multiple formats, you can actually repurpose it in 15 different places. And I think that is very
Hmm.
important for startups to know, because then they should not get feel bogged down by the fact that, oh, content marketing means I have to write one new blog every week, then only I will get
Hmm.
featured. That's not true. You write that blog, then you make a video out of it, then you make 3 social media posts out of it, you write a LinkedIn post out of it, you add it into your newsletter. 6 7 places you've already used it, right? So
Hmm.
that one piece of content, because now we have multiple formats and you're targeting people with different attention spans, with different habits and behaviors, the biggest shift that I see is that you can actually create a content stack out of that one piece of content. And that is an opportunity that you should not be missing. That is the trend. If I had to say it was a trend,
Hmm.
that is a trend that you should be catching on to. You should be very consciously using that piece of content into multiple places and maximizing the impact of your content marketing.
That's right. A completely new idea when you are creating for a campaign. It's very difficult to kind of come up with in the first place. So, and when you have like put too much of pressure on yourself, say, like 2 or 3 times a month, or, or an original campaign, that kind of
Hmm.
that focus, it's like you're exercising. If you know you're just doing these 5 exercises, you will put
Hmm.
in the maximum effort and energy. But then if you spread
Hmm.
yourself thin, you do like 15 exercises, then somewhere or the other every exercise is kind of compromised, because you don't push so much into it, because I have 15 exercises more into that. So yeah, this is something where even as content creators, we have to look at the you're repurposing your content that in a very smart way. So you have different formats it's being made, or different way of covering it, or the way
Yes.
you look at it. So yeah, that's kind of interesting that is happening. Pallavi, we can cover the content funnel per se, because that is something that we always identify as marketers, that these are the different funnels, and at what stage, what kind of content is appealing to where that customer is basically.
Hmm. So, content funnel for the audience is really just a way for you to get your stranger to move from that position where they don't know about you to become a customer. And you do that through
Hmm.
content. You do that through creating content for different stages of the funnel. So the three, you can look at the funnel as the tofu, mofu, bofu, which is the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, or you can look at it from awareness, AIDA framework, right? Awareness
Hmm.
and interest,
Interest,
decision, and all of that.
desire, yeah,
Desire and action. Yeah,
action, yeah.
exactly. So, but whatever it may be, whatever framework you use or you don't use a framework, what is important is to know that this piece of content that you have created, based on the platform, based on the format, and based on your audience, where does it sit in your funnel? So, very simple example I will give you of social media. Now we all use Instagram, and you know that Instagram has couple of three different post formats: image, reel, and carousel, and of course it has stories, right? Now, if you were to think about a content funnel for your Instagram, your content funnel would be that everything that appears on your feed is usually top of the funnel, because only about 20% of your followers see your post. It's some ridiculously small number. It's
Yeah,
not
it's pretty.
100%.
It's over the years, it's kind of reduced the percentage who are actually seeing your post of your followers.
Exactly, right? So only 20%, let's say 20% of your followers are seeing the post. So you don't want to put your most important action item in that, because you know that the 20, the other 80% have not seen it. What instead you want to do on your feed, you want to talk about something very high level, something that draws people in. And in that case, it depending on your product, it could be something like at the very basic level. It may not exactly even relate to your product, but it
Hmm.
relates to the problem that they have. Now that is where your audience gets interested. So the more they see stuff in your feed, the more they start seeing your feed, seeing your posts, and they get interested in what you're selling. Now next thing is in the story usually is in the middle of the funnel, because stories are seen by even lesser amount of people. I think it's like 1 or 2%, only 1-2% of your people see the Instagram story. So
Hmm.
this is where you want to put in that kind of information where you actually want them to take an action. And if you see the format of the story, that's the only place where you can add a link. Why? Because Instagram knows that a story is seen only by your follower, and that too only by a
Hmm.
very small percentage of the follower. So
Hmm.
this is where they want to give you that ability to drive the user to the next stage. And in that case, it could you could
That's
take them to a website, fill a lead form, get them to take action, right? So this is the kind of funnel that you have to understand for a platform and also for your user. Where are they going to take action? So then you create that action creating content, which is the middle of the funnel. You create it there. Otherwise, all of your content, a very large part of your content actually is always at the top of the funnel, so that you get maximum people into the funnel, and then lesser people go to the next stage. So when you are thinking about creating content, always think about which platform you're using, what action your users are going to take, and then your funnel, that's how your funnel kind of gets created for you.
that's right. So Pallavi, like a small example, you can just briefly take us through that, like how a funnel would work in a certain business or something.
So I'm going to take an example of HubSpot, because they do a very good job of creating a content funnel through their blogs itself. So I was researching something about how to how to prospect people and pitch to somebody
Hmm.
unknown. And this is the first time I'm doing it, so I have no idea. I don't even know whether I'm using the right term, or what am I searching for. So I searched for prospecting to a stranger, and I came across this really great article by HubSpot, which has talked about like the why and the how of prospecting. So they've listed everything. It's like a bible of prospecting. what is
Hmm.
prospecting, how do you identify your customers, and blah blah blah. So it's a very long article, it's about I don't know, it's about 2000, 3000 words, and that's what they always do, that they always put at the top of the funnel, they always put a really long article. Now, within that article, for example, how do you identify who you have to prospect? And your identification obviously comes from your customer. But what they've done is now they've given off links to say, if you want to go into greater detail, here is this link. If you want a template that you can fill out and say, okay, this is my ideal customer, this is the age group, this is the blah, blah, whatever, then they have got a template as well. So they've got all of these other links, which that action I will only take when I am genuinely interested in actually pursuing this further. And of course, for those actions, I need to give them their email address. So now when I give them my email address, I move into the middle of the funnel. And I'm sure that once I have downloaded that template, they will start sending me a series of emails where they will eventually pitch their CRM to me. That,
Hmm.
you do you realize that when you're prospecting 1 2 people, that's fine, you can manage it. But if
Hmm.
suppose you're sending creating pitches for 30 people in a month, how are you going to manage it?
Hmm.
By the way, my CRM is the
That's
perfect
right.
solution for that. So that would be the
Pallavi,
first
in
part of
terms
the
of
funnel.
in social media, in terms of they consuming your content, can it be like apart from your email ID? Okay, you identify that whoever has downloaded like those lead magnets that are there, like an ebook or something, they are
Hmm.
part of like say middle of my funnel. But on social
Hmm.
media, is there a kind of way that you say okay, he's the middle of the funnel because he has been consuming over a period of time, or he's become, or just would you say he's a follower, so he's in the middle of the funnel?
No, so even in social media, and Instagram is a great example for that. Even
Hmm.
in social media, a middle of the funnel person would be someone who has interacted with you on your story. And how you
Hmm.
actually take that forward is by
Hmm.
then sending a DM to that person with a relevant link. So let's say I've asked a question and said that, what do you think about content marketing? Yay or nay? And suppose
Hmm.
somebody says yay, then I have a resource which says, okay, if you're
Hmm.
interested in content marketing, I've got a blog for you. Why don't you download it? So there is a funnel at
Hmm.
every platform. It's up to you to figure it out. Even on YouTube, I've seen a lot of really good YouTubers. What they do is that they'll have a content piece which is very broad. And so, then they'll say, oh, related videos, end screen, all of that you can put, right?
Hmm.
So you go to that second video. Let's say you go to the second video, which is a little bit deeper into the topic. There in
Hmm.
the description, they will have a link to a lead magnet. Then once you've done that lead magnet, of course,
Hmm.
now you've given your email address, so they'll go further. So a lot of the funneling still happens when you share your email address, because that is eventually how
Hmm.
the business takes control of their leads. But still, there are lots of places, even on social media and even in other places, where you can kind of say that, okay, now this person is much deeper
Hmm.
into the funnel than the others.
That's right. So the crucial thing is that there is a kind of some small action he has taken. So he's replied to your story, or on YouTube maybe made a comment or something. But there has to be some kind of action that you can identify. Okay, you are now in the middle of the funnel.
Exactly.
Okay, okay, sure, sure. You can continue on that.
Yeah, so I think that was pretty much it. Where we're talking about a content funnel. How does it play a role in the success of a startup's marketing strategy? Well, who doesn't want leads? So why
That's
not,
right.
why not use content funnels and content marketing to get leads?
That's
Because
right.
eventually
So
those
the
leads
one
will become
important
your
thing, how
customers.
we can cover the importance, and also say you there's a startup CEO and I'm a marketing guy, first marketing guy who's been hired here. In the what will I say to that CEO after I've done all these content activities for a month, that okay, this is our funnel, this is it, and this is the what is going to get in your business going forward, or something like that.
Yeah. See, content marketing, measuring the ROI of that is very hard, which is why a lot of
That's right.
startups
So
don't
how can you
actually
kind of
do it.
showcase it? Because we as marketers, mostly like there are many CEOs also not that strong in marketing, as well
Yeah.
as you can be like an agency, like you have so many customers who are not having much this thing in marketing and not trained themselves or not like savvy in that. So how do you say or show them certain things that okay, we are on the right track, this is where our funnels are.
Yeah. What I found most successful, I do three, four things. One
Hmm.
is that I do share the content funnel with them, so,
Hmm.
to explain to them that this is how a customer moves. They
Hmm.
need to understand that 100% of the people are not going to move. I've had founders who tell me that, okay, maybe not 100%, but at least 90% will fill the form. And I'm like, no, it's like
Hmm.
10 or 20%. So they
Yeah.
don't know because no one has given them this data, right? So as marketers, our first job is to first quantify and say, this is why I need a funnel, because only 5% of these people are going to go from step one to step two. So if
Hmm.
you only show it to 100 people, then by the time you get here, you're going to be at 0.5, which is really not a number,
Hmm.
right? So important first thing is to say that why do I need a funnel, and what are the benchmarks for each stage of the funnel. Then you need to define the KPIs. You say, for example, if I'm creating blogs as the top of the funnel. Now, if somebody asks me that, okay, how do I show sales from the number of people who are coming to the blog? I cannot show sales unless and until I put a GPS tracking on that person. I cannot say that the person who came to the blog is the one who eventually bought it, because there is no
Hmm.
identification that the analytics gives you. So what you need to say that at this part of the funnel, our only objective is to get X number of people to the website. Have we achieved it? Yes. If we have achieved it, then we know that 10% of them are going to move here, then another 10% here, another 10% here. So eventually you will get 50 sales if I show your blog to say 10,000 people. So
That's right.
you need to have different metrics for every stage of the funnel, and that you need to tell upfront. And I think I found most success by doing that.
That's right. Yeah, you have to kind of inform them what are like an industry standards and all. Like, I think I was doing long time back. There was some email marketing campaign we had just started. Like, so we had, I think, started with the Zoho software, and it's like the open rate we were seeing. So they were saying, what
Yes.
the hell? They only like 10% people have opened it. So we said this is much better than the industry standard of 7%. So I had to kind
Yes.
of inform them that what is realistic. You have to set the expectation as per reality. What is the reality at the ground level?
Yes.
So yes,
Yes.
yes. So that is the even the lead. Like if you take the leads that are captured, and then from there, how many leads does it take for a sale? That is, I think, cost of acquisition.
Hmm.
So these things
Yes.
have to be kind of set out there that these are certain things in the industry standard. Don't listen to me. You can do your own research, but this is how
Hmm.
it's done as per my experience. So that kind of conversation has to be outright. You obviously marketers also, to get the sale, or an agency would kind of exaggerate things or say things, but then obviously in the long term it's not going to kind of work out. Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's right. So Pallavi,
Hmm.
when they are in the middle of the funnel, we have to now then create. We've got their attention. Now, how do you? What are
Hmm.
some elements to keep them engaged?
Always start with the customers. Always. You could be, you could say that, okay, video is the best trend right now. Everybody pays attention to video, but you know that as a B2B marketer, video probably is not the right answer for every single industry. Some people, they might watch 1,000 reels, but at their work, they don't want to watch a video. They would rather have a white paper which runs into 8 pages and gives them exactly the level of detail that they want. They will not get the same answer from a
Hmm.
video. So always start with your customer. What
Yeah.
kind of format, what kind of content is your customer consuming? And then create that on the platform that they want. Having said that, like I said before, that all you have to use your content in multiple places in multiple formats, sometimes just to catch the attention. So even with a B2B company, you may have a white paper which is really dull and really boring, and you don't know what to do with it. But if you can create carousel posts out of one piece of item of that, like one statistics, or maybe have somebody on the video talk about some very important finding that has happened in the video, happened in the white paper, that could be your top of the funnel content for that piece of content. And maybe then the decision maker will say, okay, this is based on a white paper. How do I get the white paper? Here's how I fill out the form, and I read through the white paper, and then I take the next action. So creating engaging and valuable content always starts with your customer, and never ever forget that. It's always about the customer, not about you.
That's right. Pallavi, we observe that when you make a customer persona, it's mainly so that you find out the journey of a particular customer, and what are the issues they face within that. A certain, like when you identify pain points. So, any other ways where you kind of identify the pain points? Because from those pain points only, majorly you can create content that they will pay attention to.
So, like I said, we were talking about earlier, right? We were talking about market research. And when you're starting out, whatever your idea may be, it's good to have that assumption and, kind of run with it. But the more you talk to your customers, the more feedback that you get, especially from people who have not bought from you. I think that really helps you to understand that even though you think you're solving a pain point, maybe there is another external factor that is not compelling them to buy from you. So I'll
Hmm.
give you an example of my previous startup. So before 26 Tech, my first foray into entrepreneurship was an online magazine for children. So that was something that I started while I was still working as an automotive engineer. And I did it because I loved reading, and I felt that the children of today did not have that option. They didn't have access to Indian content. This was back in 2015. So me and my husband, we were the co-founders, and we created a magazine which had Indian themed content, and it was very on point. Even so much so that when demonetization happened, we actually had an entire edition dedicated to demonetization stories, fictional stories about demonetization. So we were really targeting a modern child. Despite that, despite the way we were packaging it, it wasn't selling enough. So what I used to do, we had a free trial version and people used to sign up for it. Once the free trial was ending, I would always call up that person and speak to them and ask them how the free trial went. And that's where I got all this input. So one of the free trial person that I spoke to, she spoke to me and she said, your content is great, but it's just a blog, it's just a lot of text. And my while I love it as a parent, my child is looking at YouTube videos. My child is looking at
Hmm.
very 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 rich, very feature rich content, right? So in
That's
that,
right.
if I have to tell my child that you read a 700-page story text wise, not going to happen at all.
Hmm.
And that kind of feedback helped me understand that, can I address this problem? Do I, as a founder,
Hmm.
as a company, is this the business direction that I want to take? Or if I don't want to take, then I understand that this is my limitation, this is what I'm competing against. So we did try to address it, and we started creating animated videos out of some of our stories for younger children. But the point is that if I had never spoken to that person, I would have never understood that it was not my quality, it was the format and the presentation of my content that if I could change, I would get more customers. So speaking to people is really the best way. I think there's no shortcut out of it. You have to speak to your customers and ask them the right questions, and or just have a conversation with them and you get all the answers
That's
that you
right.
want.
And this kind of an audience where is the parents basically where you're talking to, they will
Yeah.
more tend to give more time on it because it's something product which is highly affecting
Hmm.
the child. Is going to help in their education and overall development. Pallavi, so
Yeah.
have you noticed that? So like when I'm like in school and all, it was very text heavy with the books. And now, do you think now for the children, the books also the way the media is used and photos, or there could be even a video element because now we have so much online teaching also. So that also has evolved a lot over the time in the digital age.
Yeah, well, I mean, why just for children, even for adults, right? There's so many
Yeah.
studies that are being floated around which say that an average person's attention span is less than 8 seconds. So in
Hmm.
8 seconds, you cannot expect them to read 4 lines of text. All you can hope to do is show them a reel which has 3 seconds of interesting
Hmm.
information. So yes, I agree that it starts with the children, but everyone's attention span is smaller, and hence
Hmm.
the kind of content that people consume is has to be very very snappy. It has to be very fast.
That's right. And just one aside, so we as marketers, obviously, you have to serve what kind of more a customer wants. Like, so we have to put it in that format. But personally, I feel for your own, like in terms of your concentrations and paying attention and actually, getting work done, you should be used to, concentrating and reading. Like it could be you're in an
Hmm.
office as a marketer, read up a lot of articles like on sites, AFAX or you have social samosa and these kind of places where
Hmm.
they have full on articles. Like do a lot of reading, Google News your topics. Suppose you work in digital advertising, see what are the articles that are there. I think there are a lot of sites, ad exchanges and all that, which are like marketing news sites. So do a
Yeah.
lot of reading in that, then just the consumption of the video, because a video goes by very quickly in a lot of information.
Yeah.
So unless you going back and kind of reviewing it, like someone like a Dhruv Rathi's video, if you just see it in the 10 minutes, you are not going to learn that. You might have to see it and make points and all that. So yeah, that is one thing that as individuals we should kind of do that a lot, because the attention span, that's fine, that's kind of an information out there that's reducing, but for personally your attention span should be more if you want to be the
Yes.
achiever and just not just a consumer or something. Awesome,
Correct.
awesome. So, Pallavi, I've noticed that with content, you're also nurturing your lead. So, lead could be like you have a lead, somebody's filled a form on your website, you've got certain information from them. They could have like given your email ID, so then you can put them in another list and have very specific emails
Mm.
sent out to them. Or within social media, also, like you have maybe they're part of a group, like you have seen the channels being made
Yeah.
in Instagram. I think there is some channels kind of thing made now. WhatsApp channels also, it was
Mm.
launched a few more. So how do you then convert these like in to the next level where then he becomes a customer?
Yeah, so the second half of content marketing and the missing piece, I would say, it's the yin and yang. You have to
Hmm.
have that lead nurturing kind of process, I think that there can be both ways. That you have a very specific campaign, starts off with a very specific piece of content, like for example, a white paper or a free download of something. Maybe it's a guide of how to make videos.
Hmm.
That lead nurturing is going to be very specific to that campaign. Somebody who downloads a guide to make great videos then might be nurtured and told about what kind of equipment you need to buy, and here are the affiliate links. And finally, it could be that we can help you with creating a script, or we can help you with SEO optimization of your videos, and that is the final pitch. So that is a campaign kind of lead nurturing, which is more short term. The long term, when you have a content strategy in place, in the long term, as I said, if your funnel is very clearly defined, then you know that as a group of people from top of the funnel, where do you take them to the middle of the funnel. And maybe for your business that could be something as straightforward as a newsletter, that you don't actively keep pitching to a person the minute they give you their email address. Instead, what you do is you consistently, through a newsletter, tell them about the benefits of doing business with you. What is it that they will get out of it, right? So maybe your newsletter is covering all of that from many different angles. And of course, the newsletter then has to have a call to action, which could be whatever that call to action could be. So that kind of lead nurturing is much more cost effective for a business to do, much more sustainable to do, and definitely required for you to have that basic level of lead nurturing. Your second lead nurturing, that campaign level, that comes into play only when you have a short term strategy. In the long term, you need to have content at those different places, which is moving the person into making a decision further.
That's right. Pallavi, any examples you can share, like with content you have actually seen that they have been really effective in lead nurturing? You could be as a consumer also. We have utilized, like we have given them their email ID, and now we've started getting the newsletters. But like specific examples, if we can talk about.
So I signed up for, or rather, I follow a business coach on social media, and I've been following her for a very long time. I've not really taken any action. I'm just looking at her content, and she recently launched a Facebook. I think it was like a mastermind or a master class or something, which was a 5 day thing. It
Hmm.
was completely free, and she gave very specific ideas about, like at 10 in the morning every day, we'll all of us will reconnect for 1 hour and we'll talk about this, and she would come live on Facebook and so on. So her
No, so she
effort was
used
quite a
to come live on
on the
Facebook. So that
Facebook
was
community.
okay, okay, okay. It's not like a pre-recorded
Yeah.
video. She used to actually come live, and okay, okay. She's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So she used to come live every day for those 5 days, and as I said, it was a free thing. So I signed up for it because I wanted to understand, what she's talking
Hmm.
about, and I found it very interesting. So, and when she'd come live, it was a very free flowing conversation. She would just talk about, say, a specific topic of the day. How do you handle different hires, or how do you work with different clients? And very good content for those 5 days. After the 5 days, nothing was expected from us. We were not, pitched anything. But after that, once those 5 days finished, then she started nurturing us with a different type of content. So she had an entire series of emails where she was talking about, in that Facebook, in that episode, I talked about managing different clients, and I have a product which helps you achieve that. So that's where she started, kind of pitching her whatever software that she had created. I didn't sign up for it, but I'm sure that there was a percentage of people who did sign up for it because they were able to view the benefits, or they were able to view the gaps of what they were not doing in that free community without feeling the pressure to purchase anything. At that time,
Hmm.
she was only sharing information, and they were not
Hmm.
feeling pressurized that, oh, I need to buy something. So, they are giving
Hmm.
her their entire focus because she's not selling to them. She's only telling them that
Hmm.
these are the 5 aspects of your business that you need to look at. Now they know they have a problem, but they don't know how to solve it. So her second set of nurturing was that, I talked about this problem, my software solves it. Why don't you try it, buy it, or do whatever you want with it? So
Hmm.
now the audience is much more prepared to, take that action. So I think whenever we think about
Hmm.
lead nurturing, it is about focusing on one aspect
Hmm.
of, the decision
So
making
it's
capability.
a
And I think
great
this is a
strategy
great
where
example.
you are interacting. So there is a live interaction. The customer or prospects, they can kind of identify, okay, this person has dedicated this time themselves for this activity, and there's an action. It's like speak to someone on the phone, and then you ask them like, can we like meet up or something, and that person actually comes down and is giving that time. So
Yeah.
that has an another level. Obviously, in their stage of a relation between the two, also goes to the next level then, right? Because he's
Yeah.
investing that time. So it's the great strategy where in the digital realm you are investing your time. You're actually there. You're having the live session, and you're just gaining that credibility, trust with them. Also, they have a sense of gratitude towards you. Like if people ask
Yes.
questions during that session, they are answering it and very specific. I've even attended certain sessions like that. So people have very specific questions, like what a specific problem in
Yeah.
that business they are
To
facing.
them.
So they give them, and they really, there is that sense of satisfaction you get, that impression. It takes you to the next level, like your relation with them, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. We can talk a little bit about the challenges that startups will face when they are having these content strategies. Because you have a certain budget, so for a quarter, and you invest that amount of time and money and energy in it. I think content is something which, the for a marketer, the amount of resources and time and everything it takes, it's quite a lot. So when you review, maybe something's not happening, people are not moving to a certain funnel, or that expense. Also, there's a pressure on you to justify it to the management, so that's not happening, like in
Mm.
terms of actual the real business results. So anything you want to talk about, that certain challenges you've faced, and then how you kind of overcome them?
So I feel like we've covered a few of the challenges already, and maybe we've answered the question. So I'll just summarize that what we've
Sure.
already talked about. I think definitely the one thing that we have talked about is the resources. So
Hmm.
you feel pressurized that you have to constantly churn out new content, and the way to combat that is to create a content stack. Is to figure
Hmm.
out and say this one piece of content, how can I break it up into multiple topics, and then each of that topic into multiple formats and publish it in various different places. So that is something that bootstrap companies really struggle with, and if they adopt this kind of mindset, then they can very easily overcome it. The next challenge that we already spoke about is the ROI. How do I show that my content marketing is actually affecting my bottom line of the business? And that is where you, as a marketer or as a founder, whoever is creating that content marketing strategy, has to have a very clear idea of what your funnel is looking like, what are your benchmarks, right? So that way you can then easily correlate your ROI. You can easily say that at this point my ROI is to measure only the website traffic, I cannot equate it to my sales. So that's the second challenge I think that people will face. The third challenge could be that you don't exactly know how to create a funnel. You think you've created a funnel, which
Hmm.
actually may not be taking the user from point A to point B. Now, this, of course, comes with a lot of experience. a lot of experience in creating funnel strategies, but also a lot of understanding of your customer.
So
Your customer
Pallavi,
may not.
generally when you do it, is it a you're using a kind of a software for that where you are identifying the people in the particular funds which you can see on a dashboard?
No, so that kind of strategy works very well with short-term campaigns where you have a landing
Hmm.
page and you're getting some people
Yeah.
to do that and you build that funnel. But it's actually not required in a long-term strategy. It would be great to have a software which can tell me that my website traffic is correlating to my social media
Yeah.
DMs in a certain way, but unfortunately there isn't. I have a dashboard and I have multiple dashboards where I look at. But when you're thinking about long-term content strategy, that is much harder to do. So you have to manually create that kind of dashboard or that analysis for you yourself.
So you are using, like, when you say a dashboard, like what tool do you use? Like for example, I use like for my own thing. I'm not talking marketing or anything specifically. I'll
Mm.
have a Todoist because everything is divided into a projects, and within that, in the projects, you have sections and then tasks and subtasks.
Yeah. So when we are measuring the impact of content marketing, there are many different channels that you're measuring at, right? You're looking at your social media performance, your website performance. So usually what I do is I create my dashboard in Looker Studio, which is Google's, it used to be called
Yeah,
Google Data Studio earlier.
yeah.
And what I will have in the background is an Excel file where I'm tracking all these things. So I will have a top of the funnel metric dashboard. I will have a bottom of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and I will say, okay, this is now my sales dashboard, what my sales are looking like, and so on and so forth. So similarly, I think for products, it's probably relatively easier, especially if everything is on one platform. Like I know Shopify gives this, all these e-commerce websites, they will give you a really great dashboard. But for service and when you have multiple content channels, it does become a little harder. And maybe some startup out there can build this for us. Who knows?
That's right. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're identifying that is also for marketers. That is something out there that is a gap in the market. So yeah,
Yeah.
people can when they're making the software, they can kind of address that. So Pallavi, the what do you find the misconceptions majorly, because you're meeting clients day in day out, and like they talk about the things in the content, their expectation, and always there is a gap. There is maybe too much expectation, or you don't know really what is there on the ground level. So what are the main misconceptions and myths that are there?
Main misconception, especially with the audience that I work with, is that content marketing is requires a lot of budget, requires a lot of resources. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about content stacking, because I keep saying that to everyone, that it's not that you have to create fresh new content. And what they find really hard to understand is that I've already published this on social media. How can I publish it again? Well, the attention span of somebody is 8 seconds. So if you publish it
That's
after
it.
8 seconds, no one will remember it.
Plus,
So
many people are not seeing a previous post. It's not like every post everyone is hooked in and they are seeing it. So
yes.
obviously, you can play around with things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is for me the main misconception that I am trying to bust when I work with my clients, is that let's get into content marketing. Let's make a start. Even if the founder shoots a reel, we can then create a carousel post about it 2 3 weeks later. Then we can create a story. We can ask a questions, and obviously we are being smart about it. We are not saying the same thing over and over again. We're not saying, like, if we were to create a content stack for this, we are not saying the same thing over and over again, that content marketing is required. No, you give different points about it, but the thing is
Hmm.
that you have a central idea, and that central idea has come from one piece of content. So the more you understand this concept of content stacking, the easier it becomes for you to foray into content marketing. And we've already talked about it enough, that content marketing is a very effective way of getting new customers and achieving long term growth.
So Pallavi, important thing is how your content gets distributed. We have seen on social media, compared to, let's say, even 10 years back, if it's a really good content piece, the distribution of it is kind of even in a free content, we're not actually paying for it. If it's
Mm.
really good, it's getting the shares, the distribution, and the reach. It kind of enhances. But today, that is not the case. And even creating content that stands out is very difficult. Like that has to have a lot of effort, or budget, or it could be just a case where something kind of just clicks, so you can like really rely on it on a strategy.
Hmm.
So how do you, what do you suggest on the distribution of content, because there will be certain expectations of views or a kind of an engagement, comments or something from the audience, and when the management is seeing that, so how do you approach this?
Yeah, and I think we spoke about it a little bit briefly when you were talking to me about LinkedIn Top Voice. And
Hmm.
I remember I told you that not every piece of post that I have created in the last 20 months has gone viral. In fact,
Hmm.
very most of my posts have a reach of 2,500, which I think is very normal for other people. Yet
Hmm.
my content has been recognized as something that adds value to the community,
Hmm.
and that has been because there have been three posts of mine that have gone viral. They have
Hmm.
you know reached 1 lakh reach. So I think the important thing to remember when you're thinking about distribution and amplification of content, firstly, is that there not every piece of content is going to go viral. So you have to, as a content creator, you have to think about which is that piece of content which has the potential to go viral. So there is maybe a piece of content that is chock full of very highly knowledgeable kind of information, or it actually addresses the pain point of someone so well that it goes viral. So maybe at this first stage you have to think about what is that piece of content. Then of course you think about distributing it on various channels. So like we spoke about content stacking, you put that information on different pieces of platform, different platforms, and then you see that is it resonating with people. Having said that, after doing all of this, it may still happen that that piece of content is a complete dud. Maybe it doesn't make it to where it needs to. That's fine. But as long as you're creating content and as long as you understand who your audience is, the chances of something doing very well will happen because you are consistently creating content. Now, when we talk about distribution and amplification of content, see, in terms of distribution, it is very important to have multiple channels. And that multiple channel doesn't necessarily mean social media. It actually means different types of channels, that you have one email. So whatever you create, send it out in a newsletter, maybe put it up as your WhatsApp story. It's amazing how many people see that. Put it up as a WhatsApp story, or whatever else channels that you are active on and where people expect you to put this kind of information. And then the amplification is going to happen where you break that up into different formats. Like we said, video ko aap blog bana lo, blog se you create a carousel, maybe speak about it. I've seen a lot of people, content creators, when they come to interviews like this, they also talk about, refer back to something that they have created, because
Hmm.
that's gives a very nice segue into saying that I know what I'm talking about, and there's an existing piece of content that I have already created. So as a content creator, you always have to think about creating that web of your content, which you can pitch wherever you want. Pick up any cuddy of that and start talking about it in various different places. So I think if we were to look at, to answer the question what strategy works best, when you are a content creator, you have to immerse yourself into that. How do I distribute it? All the time you're thinking about how do I place it strategically in multiple different places such that it addresses the it solves the problem right at that point of time.
That's right. Pallavi, with the example, you can talk about the paid part of it. So, like where you are boosting certain posts, because you are, working with a company, maybe they have hardly any presence on social media, they have hardly any followers. So, a really good content is not going to, like most probably not going to reach the TG. So, you need the paid
Hmm.
push that is there. So, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I had created a guide about 2 years ago, which was about understanding your Google Analytics, and this was Google Analytics, the universal analytics, and it
Hmm.
was it was a 20-page guide which said that what does this graph really mean for you? What are you
Hmm.
looking at it in this graph, and what does it mean for your business? So I created that guide, and it was there on my website as one of the free tools that was available. But like you said, it wasn't really reaching the audience that I intended it to, because
Hmm.
it was a very technical piece of content, and it was targeting an audience who were actually looking for it. So
Hmm.
that's when I thought about using paid marketing. So I use two channels. I use one, Google Ads, because I know when somebody's searching for how do I understand my Google Analytics, this is the perfect piece of content for them. And
Hmm.
that I can only achieve with Google, because there I know the user's search intent. I cannot achieve
Hmm.
that with social media. No one's coming to social media to look for answers on Google Analytics. And I use LinkedIn because I knew that the piece of content that I had created was for a specific job role, was for a specific industry. So where can I target them? I can only target them on LinkedIn. So I ran one lead form ad which said that, this is what the piece of content is. If you want it, just give me your email address and download it, and get the piece of content for you. And then of course I had a lead nurturing after that. So to your point, every piece of content cannot be distributed randomly. It cannot be thrown out into the wind. Sometimes you need to have a campaign strategy, and we talked about it a
Hmm.
little bit earlier, that you have a specific campaign for a specific piece of content, and in most cases that would be a paid kind of strategy,
Hmm.
because you need really specific about who you want
Hmm.
to show this content to.
So Pallavi, in your case, so you use Google search ads and LinkedIn. What kind of ads?
LinkedIn lead format.
Lead format. Okay, okay. But this is the search ads. I think are the most expensive, right?
Actually, LinkedIn is more expensive.
LinkedIn would be so definitely because I think there it is the distribution to a very specific audience, like as per filtering, the designation and various other, I mean, the city they are in and a lot of other things that are there. So that though definitely is there, but then that you utilize that, like you felt that much importance in that content to get a certain result that you invested that money in.
Yeah, because the piece of content was very high value. It
Hmm.
had a lot of it literally you didn't need anyone else, because it was full of so much information. And
Hmm.
for somebody to receive that for free was an extremely good offer. So yes, I felt very confident in running paid campaigns for that content.
That's right. But it was a lead magnet you were showcasing, right? That okay, for the whole
Yes.
report, then you give me your email ID or something like that.
I had a service where I was actually analyzing the Google Analytics data, the
Hmm.
website data of small businesses, and creating a marketing strategy out of it. So as a step
Okay.
one was to demonstrate that I understand what your data is, and here's how you can draw inferences from it.
Okay, okay, awesome. So probably we'll go back to like the original content and something definitely since you've done marketing for quite a long time, you would have read a lot of books also on content and marketing and the consumer. Um, so there are certain principles maybe you would have read about or even in the your working you would have experienced it that this is something which is like something to learn upon is a point where you have to keep it attention like it could be like you have it in front of you and it's like a tick mark this should have your content should have this aspect of it so any kind of principles you can share with respect to that.
Yeah, so we've maybe covered a couple of them already, that your content should always start with your audience, not what you want to convey, instead, what your audience wants to hear. And, I'm an engineer, and I've seen other engineers, and this is a very common challenge that they face,
Hmm.
that they're so in love with their product, because, it's so innovative. They've solved a really complex problem through coding or to creating something,
Hmm.
very complex piece of machine. The customer doesn't really care about that. What the customer
Hmm.
cares about is what is it solving for me. So your content, first of all, has to be focused towards the customer. I think we've spoken about that. Another principle that I follow, and I think that in today's world, when your attention span is lower, it is becoming more important, is that when you're creating content, it has to have one central idea. One piece of content has to have one central idea. So, like today, we are talking about content marketing only. We are not beating around the bush, and we are
Hmm.
talking about influencer marketing. We're not talking about social media
Hmm.
and all. Because
And
why?
that also for
Because
like
it is
startups.
important.
So it's a type of marketing for a specific type of company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to go deep into a topic, because that is what shows your credibility. That is what
Hmm.
shows that you really know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
If you keep skimming the surface all the time and you're saying the same thing over and over again, no one understands that this is what your expertise is at, right? So go deep. And I keep telling this to my employees when they're creating social media content, that every piece of post has to have only one idea to it. You start with what is the problem, then you answer the, you solve the problem for them, and then you repeat what the solution is, and you have a CTA. So that's the second thing, that stick to one central idea. The third one is that, I again say it, content stacking. Always have different pieces of content, for the different formats of content for the same thing. Make your money and your time go longer than what it can. So yeah, those are the three things that I would like to leave people with.
Awesome. Pallavi, going forward, what are the trends you see in content? Like now we have entered like a new year also, and people are like making even the marketing plan. Like even I had in my company, like I think end of last month, we just put in a marketing plan suggesting that to the higher management that we can do all this now. We are in the process of getting approvals and getting deeper. Like the idea they liked, they want to get deeper into it, and we present that so that we can kind of have a budget and time
Hmm.
to execute it. So,
Hmm.
what do you feel now for this year? Like, what are the content marketing trends?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room and talk about AI.
That's it.
AI I would say it's trending in every sphere of, not just marketing, every sphere. I've personally found that using AI in my content marketing actually makes me more creative. So, sometimes we struggle with thinking about the same thing over and over again. We struggle to
Hmm.
come up with ideas, and maybe even your team is totally tapped out. You've reached the end of your creativity for something, and I think that that's where AI can really help. That
Hmm.
you give the problem to AI, and maybe it can come up with these thought starters for you. That, oh yeah, as a founder, you can write about this particular idea in your LinkedIn post, and that's great for me because I don't have to constantly keep thinking. And it's not that I'm inventing a post. It's just that
Hmm.
somebody external has reminded me that
Hmm.
you can talk about the fact that you have to manage your time as a founder. So why don't you create a
Hmm.
post on that?
That's it.
So
Yeah.
I find that very interesting, and I find that very helpful, that content marketing, is getting creative using AI. And I think we were talking about it earlier as well, that it can also hasten your production of the content.
Hmm.
That it can very easily transcribe and pull out these snippets from the very long video that you created, or very quickly create a tweetable text based thing, such
Hmm.
that when somebody clicks it in your blog, it becomes a tweet, and all of that can be
That's
done.
right.
So I think using AI, using technology in your content marketing is going to make it faster to distribute,
Hmm.
faster to amplify. It's not going to replace your idea, that you still have to do it yourself, but
That's
if
right.
it can make it faster, it becomes more effective.
That's right. Pallavi, like I have noticed, like when you're using ChatGTP, at least say you're making a certain plan or there is a content like you are making it for an article or something. So at least I'm not saying you're copying the thing because that is foolish because it's something it you can see it's an kind of an AI and a lot of people are using the same. So it's that is foolishness
Yes.
if you're doing the same. Like I just put the in the prompt the name of the topic of the article and then I'm getting it, but
Mm.
it puts something in front of you in structured way. So you can kind of
Yeah.
because getting to that point also used to take a lot of time where you did a lot of googling, you
Mm.
research, looked at certain different articles. You don't know what, and then after reading certain link, you felt like I have wasted my time on that. Maybe it was not
Yeah.
that good. So it at least puts something in front of you, and then you can play around with it and change things within. Obviously, to customize it to what you are doing. So at least
Yeah.
in that flow, because they always say in productivity is generally it's too much time is into thinking and all that we can waste or what should I do. When it's something is in front of you, when you have that target or you have uh, a plan in front of you, you can kind of change around things within that to suit you. But at least you have started and you are in that direction.
Exactly.
Awesome. So Pallavi, the then we would come to the stack. Like, what do you feel in AI? Like, what you are using? What do you suggest? Um, like in content creation, I have no. There's a tool like I use Weed.io, so that will create the subtitling automatically. It also
Yes.
maybe create cut out maybe oohs and ahs or something which is not required in the video automatically. So you don't have to edit that much. So that's a great tool for video editing, right? Like because you're creating so much video content. So something like that, you can just suggest that a certain stack that maybe you are using in different kind of content. You would suggest that.
I use about 4 or 5 things. I don't know whether all of them are AI, but they're definitely tech stacks.
Yeah.
So I was using Headliner for creating a Instagram video out of my podcast because I had a 5 minute podcast and I
Hmm.
wasn't shooting a video with it.
Hmm.
So I wanted something which I could, upload as a video on Instagram. So I was using Headliner, and then I also switched to
Hmm.
Week.io. I found it much more
Hmm.
intuitive. Um, I am using Happy Scribe, which is what helps me create subtitles for videos, especially on LinkedIn, where now I think they've added the option to have subtitles, but earlier on they didn't have that option. You had to upload a subtitle file on your own. So Happy Scribe does that very well, and you don't have to type it out. You just edit
Hmm.
whatever's done. My team and I, we are using copy.ai for content creation. So creating, your social media posts and getting your social media post to be extremely homogenized. That,
Hmm.
say you've looked at 3 4 different resources and you've created a post, but the language is
Hmm.
different, the way it's spoken is different. Somewhere it's direct
Hmm.
voice, indirect voice. Now, to recreate that and look overlook the grammar and all of the comprehension, it is
Hmm.
a challenging task.
Hmm.
AI can do that very well because you can just give the prompt and say, normalize the language or write it for a 5 year old or
Hmm.
use American English instead of British English spellings, right? So those kind of things can
Hmm.
be very well, it can be done very well with an AI tool. So that's what we are using. In fact, we paid for it as well. I'm now starting to use Bard, bard.google.com, and that I find very creative. And of course, the resources at Bard are, referring all the articles on Google. So I like the
Hmm.
fact that it gives me these references because I would like to validate that what it's saying
That's
is
right.
actually true and it's not just making it up. I know that's a common problem with
Bard is,
ChatGPT.
I think,
So
free only, right? Like you can
yes, it is
use it
free.
on. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because
So
there is
those
an
are the
angle
three
where
profiles I'm
the
using.
chat, but have you used like Chat GTP? There's an advanced
No.
version of that. So I don't know how good like people are. There is a certain amount of payment. Obviously, it's like a monthly thing, but I don't know how good that we also in Chat GTP, the earlier version, like the ones we are using for free, it is up to a certain point, like 2021 or something like that, right? Where it's having the
Hmm.
information. So absolute
Yes.
latest information you're not getting on a certain topic, or it doesn't show references from where it's taken it, or is it even referring, or it's just like an AI is kind of with all its knowledge is saying something directly. It's not with the references or something. So yeah, that are certain. Limitation, you have to work around that. So obviously as marketers you have to pay for certain tools because everything with AI also now, even though it's got easier, the expectations always increase. That is what always. So
Yeah.
you're using the volume expectation increase, the quality expectation increase. So you have to work out a way
Yeah.
of using these tools.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Pallavi, in terms of, is there any kind of example where you see, na, like we worked with a lot of, when we just started off our company, so we'll have a really small, a business person, like a restaurant we are working for. So have you had any kind of experience where you have done a content strategy and directly there is some, like within a short period of time, maybe a couple of months, you are seeing sales being converted because of that?
Yeah, so it feeds into why I'm a LinkedIn top voice. So when I started my company, I was not posting on LinkedIn, and I started my
Hmm.
company in April 2020.
Hmm.
So it was during COVID, of course.
Hmm.
So that time I was not really creating content on LinkedIn. The only thing I was doing was I was writing a blog every week, and I would publish a post about
Post,
talking to the blog.
yeah.
Absolutely. When I hired my first employee, this is one of the first things that she said to me. She said, "You're not active on LinkedIn." I said, "I'm active. I'm posting a blog." She says, "No, but that's not helping me in any way.
Hmm.
You're pitching your blog to me." So I said,
Hmm.
"Okay." I really thought about it, and then she helped me craft out a content strategy. What are the
Hmm.
topics that you really can talk about that differentiate you from someone else? And I can talk about first time entrepreneurship. I can talk about switching careers in the middle of when you're in your 30s, and there's so many things I can talk about. So what we did at that time was we created a content strategy for me. What am I going to be posting about? How often is it possible for me to do it? And really, I started in July 21, I think. And within 3 months, my network started reaching out to me. Now my network was not reaching out to me to say that they have a company and they would like marketing support, because I didn't have that network. My network was full of automotive engineers. Instead, my network
Hmm.
would reach out to me and say, I have given you a reference to someone because someone was asking me for a digital marketing person and I know
Hmm.
you, so I gave it to them. So I actually started to see leads coming in from LinkedIn and they have converted. So I think in that 1 year, my leads from LinkedIn went from 0% to 50% of my customers came from LinkedIn. 50 or
Hmm.
55% of my customers came from LinkedIn.
And
And I think
that's a
that
case
is
like you are not messaging them at all. Those kind of leads were directly
absolutely
through your content they're coming.
two
Oh,
posts per week, one on
okay,
entrepreneurship
okay.
and one on small business marketing, and that's it. So that is the power of very effective content marketing. And now, of course, what
Hmm.
happens is that I'm consistently posting, so my number of leads from LinkedIn is pretty much stayed the same, the same thing that
Hmm.
I was getting earlier on. So now I know that this effort from content marketing is going to get me these leads. So now my focus is on
Hmm.
creating different types of content, maybe accelerating my leads. But at least I know that this
Hmm.
stream of content marketing helps me get at least my water level business. This is the
That's
baseline that
right.
I want,
And
and
the leads
everything
then
else will
obviously
follow.
convert. You would then go deeper that, okay, say 10 leads is giving me this a sale, and this would be a value of a average sale, those kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. So the channel becomes very clear. This content marketing is helping me achieve this much in my sales.
That's right. Pallavi will just briefly two, three. I'll can tell you about certain personas. You can just tell a brief kind of a strategy or some tips and all. So, firstly, it would
Mm.
be like a CEO of a tech company, a small startup, just started, maybe have around 5-10 employees, and they are posting, and they maybe have like a SaaS product, right? Like certain
Mm.
function it's following, maybe like a sales CRM or something like that. So, what would be their strategy?
So when you have a SaaS product, as I said, the one of the mistakes that people make is they talk about the features of their products, how beautiful
Hmm.
it is, how what problem it is solving. I think you have to think about what is the community that you're building around your product. So your
Hmm.
product could be, let's take an example of, I think I was
So,
seeing something yesterday.
SaaS mein you can
Yeah,
take like
okay.
Zoho or something, like a CRM or something.
Yeah. So see, if you're now pitching a CRM, you're not going to talk about the fact that you can upload so many leads to it and so on
Hmm.
and so forth. I mean, you could manage that with an Excel file as well,
Hmm.
right? Instead, you're going to talk about how much time your team is going to save, how
Hmm.
you are able to close the leads that you contacted 6 months ago, and that person told you that in 6 months my company is going to get funded. That's when I'm going to invest in a CRM. Now, how do you keep track of
Hmm.
that? That you can do through your CRM as well, and it actually sends you a notification. So these are the kind of content. These are the kind of content that you need to create on all your channels, which help them understand that this is the problem that can be solved, through the product that the person is selling.
That's right. Second, let's take a person who is working in a huge company, and he is like say the chief, like a head of department, like a marketing CMO or something of a huge
Hmm.
company, a branded company like say an HUL or something. A specific brand will be Wix or something they are working for. What would be their own strategies? Because it is more about, not about so much of the company, it's your personal brand that you're building, because you want that your value to be in the market. Today dynamics are changing, right? Like you have to have your own identity also along with the company that you're working for.
Yeah, actually, that applies to the previous customer persona also that we spoke about, the
Yeah, yeah,
CEO.
yeah.
The more your personal brand is out there, the better it is for your company. In the case of a larger organization, I
But I think
I
in the
know that
CEO's case, he will push his product because it's his baby. He will push that more in his content comparatively. It could be direct, indirect, compared to the guy who is doing a job there, and he'll be like, okay, also talking about my company, but a lot about myself also.
Yeah. So for larger companies, I know sometimes they do find it challenging to position a individual.
Hmm.
Having said that, one of the things that works very effectively is to be invited to like panel discussions,
Hmm.
or even for example, authoring a white paper. I know. I think there was a case study of I'm not sure whether it was IBM or HP or someone. So this is what they had done, is that they had
Hmm.
actually got their senior management of a particular department to contribute to a white paper. And this is, from their own experience, 50, 60 years of the company's experience, that the white paper had a lot of thought leadership to it, because this is an experience that no one else had. And
Hmm.
that they, of course, amplified through conferences and so many other things. But they were able to use all that information into creating that kind of pull into the market, that we are industry leaders in this space, and here's why we've demonstrated it. So naturally they got more clients like that. So with the larger company, they have that advantage. They have the manpower, the people, the
Hmm.
brains, so many more people who can then contribute to some really great piece of content.
That's really, yeah, like they can come on podcasts also and talk about their
Yeah.
things. So that is a and different kind of. I mean, you have the meetups and the conferences. You can cover a lot of where you are going out and meeting period. Also, these guys are traveling a lot. You can showcase that if you have some conference or you're meeting vendors or whatever it is, the market research you're doing. There's so much to cover actually if you are, because these companies you are traveling so much, you're meeting so many new people. There's so much to cover, which you can kind of showcase them.
Mm. Yeah.
Lastly, Pallavi, we look at like an somebody aspiring in a domain. So, like an online coach in a particular, it could be finance, marketing, HR, whatever. What kind of you feel they should look at in terms of a strategy?
So, what I've seen work very effectively for an individual kind of person,
Hmm.
whether it's a consultant or a coach, and that's the persona that you're talking about, what has worked very well for them is to demonstrate their approach. For
Hmm.
example, I remember seeing one video from a coach. And HBR also actually does this very well. Of course, they
Hmm.
are much larger. But what they do is they bring the coach onto the podcast, and then they ask them questions that typically their audience would ask. So let's say there's a coach about leadership. I was listening to one episode today about entrepreneur. This coach, she helps entrepreneurs with their leadership capabilities. So the interviewer was asking her these questions, that what if a leader doesn't know how to delegate? What do you think that that person should do? So she talks about what she would make that person do. That she would have that person have a debrief where she would say that you don't participate, all your other team members participate, and so on and so forth. Now, this, when I listen to that, if I was in the market for getting a coach for myself as an entrepreneur, then I would consider her, as opposed to someone who just tells me that I've worked with 50 coaches, 50 entrepreneurs, and here's the result that I've done. Because
Hmm.
when you're an individual, like a consultant or a coach, your personality and your approach is the biggest thing that you're selling. And if you
Hmm.
can showcase that to someone, then people make that decision. It's a very emotional connection that you have
Hmm.
with an individual. So how else are you showing that connect? How else are you showing that approach? And that is through this type of content where you actually demonstrate yourself in action. And that is very important and very impactful for this type of audience
That's reason.
persona. Sorry. Hmm.
That's right. The TGs obviously you it's like you as an online coach you are creating courses also, right? Like you're selling those. So identifying those TGs and then create a separate like content funnels for them. So that is kind of the way to go forward. Also, many of these guys they are showcasing a lot about themselves, their journeys and all that we have seen. People want to know, like even Gary they have been a check. I think I pronounced it right. So he
Yeah.
tells about that. It's they also want to know more about you. You could be a personal person. You don't have to like talk about it, create vlogs about yourself. But like certain BTS things can be shared, right? Or also
Yes.
certain challenges you have faced, how you overcome them, or some kind of knowledge you wanted to impart to that specific within your topic of discussion for your TG. So there are those all
Yeah.
things I think you can kind of look about it in your content strategy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, Pallavi, also there is one thing, like on social media, most of the content is like where you look at platforms like Instagram, YouTube, generally entertainment based contents, they get the highest reach, right? I would say the next out of outside entertainment would be like tech channels or something. So,
Mm.
what would your suggestion would be like? Because end of the day, you have to be little bit mainstream. You can't be too niche, right? In your approach, like
Mm.
there should be. That's why you see a lot of these guys. They are having those reels. They will have following the trends. Then they could be like a domain expert also. So how do you feel? Very specific domain you have. You can still kind of optimize your reach basically.
So when you're thinking about optimizing reach for a niche domain,
Yeah.
it is important to get creative and think about where else your audience is beyond your digital marketing channels.
Hmm.
Like my example itself, I told you at the start that I work with bootstrapped companies. How
Yeah.
do I find bootstrap companies? I'm not going to look at accelerators or incubators because those are funded companies. So there's no point in me targeting. And how else will I know that someone is a bootstrap company, right?
Yeah. Sir.
So one of the ways that I uh, get people to know about my business is I am a very active participant in certain groups that
Hmm.
is a group of bootstrap companies. So like the women entrepreneur group that I told you about, there are certain local networks here as well that I'm part of, which is about bootstrap founders and the pain that they are going through. So now you would not classify this as a digital marketing content because I'm actually meeting someone or I'm responding to a query on a Facebook group, which is a very closed group, no one knows about it. But this is a very specific type of group. I don't
Hmm.
have to say I am this and this is the service that I offer. I simply have to have an answer to a query that someone else has, which then puts me in the limelight, and people say, oh, why is she answering this question, how is she qualified? And then they look at my website, or they speak to me and they're like, oh, okay, maybe this person can help me. So when you're working in a specific niche, that niche will have a Slack community channel, that niche will have a Facebook group, these
Hmm.
small places where you can become a very active member, and that's where
Hmm.
you get your business from.
Hmm. Also, can look outside the internet also, like in the real world, how
Yes.
you get your content could be like what you talk about also, but your personalities you get that out there. Then you can join certain groups. You see where, or like you were talking about the women's group that you're part of.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Great. So I think we can wrap up. It's been a great podcast here with Pallavi. We learned quite a few things within our content marketing for startups. So Pallavi, then just some closing words for this, how it's going to go forward, content marketing, and how your maybe agency is kind of providing certain specific services with respect to this.
Yeah, so what we've spoken about today has been hopefully very helpful for people to understand that content marketing is not a beast. It's
Hmm.
not the most complicated thing out there. Yes, it requires more effort, it requires a lot more thinking, but in the long term, that's where your loyalty comes from, that's where your differentiation comes from. And if you are in the business of making a long lasting impact, if you want your startup to be something that people remember, and not have a startup that was like a really fast star and failed in 5 years, then content marketing is something that you need to invest. You need to start thinking about how to address all these pain points through content. um, what you're doing on social media is great because it's important to have a presence, but if you don't get strategic about what you're publishing, and if you're not leading the customer to actually take an action, then that strategy may not be the best. So you need to tweak your content strategy, and I think that's what we really work with when we are working with our clients. We're not giving them share worthy content that is going to go viral, and if something that people are going to share. No, we are giving them long term strategy that positions them as someone who is a solution provider of a very specific problem of a very specific group of people. And I think that is the main thing with content. You need to really be very clear about who you are, and then you start distributing that across various channels.
So Pallavi, your like on your social media, obviously you are the LinkedIn top voice, and so your channels that are there, you can tell a little bit about that, where all they can follow you or your company related socials.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me Pallavi Tyagi on LinkedIn, and I look like this, so
Hmm.
it's easy to find me. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at Pallavi26Tech. So again, you'll see the same photograph being repeated across all different places because the consistency is important. On LinkedIn, we have a company page as well. It's 26 Technology Services. I regularly tag the page in my posts, so it's very easy to find it. So yeah, I'm active on all three channels, and my company is active on LinkedIn as well. We do have a YouTube channel as well, and if you are an entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, I do record interviews with other entrepreneurs, so you can check that out. Unboxing Entrepreneurship with Pallavi. So we're in a lot of different places, different types of content in all different places, and happy to provide knowledge throughout our content journey. Really,
That's right. So, Pallavi, thanks a lot for taking out your valuable time and coming on to the MI podcast.
thank you so much, Nikhil.
Awesome. And to the audience, please follow the MI podcast. We are on all the podcast networks out there and also on YouTube. So please, if you can subscribe, that'd be great. We have episodes, a lot of interesting episodes coming on with people working in different industries. So podcast basically they also share, like Pallavi shared a lot about her personal journey also. So you know more about the person who's coming down, not only the professional journey, also certain facets of their personality or challenges or how they, achieve their success. They are getting deeper into it. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. For joining the MI podcast. Until next time, I'll see you. Take care.